I transmigrated into a sweet entertainment industry romance as the vicious male supporting character. I stayed with the female lead through her darkest days. I watched her rise from obscurity to an aloof, untouchable best actress known by everyone. I poured my heart and soul into her. I gave her everything I had. Yet I knew too well. There was someone hidden in Ruyan's heart. All these years, she had never once forgotten him. And I knew just as well. In a sweet romance novel, the male supporting character only exists to make the lead's love look even more perfect. What I never expected was for Ruyan to tell me, if her life was a script, she would tear it apart with her own hands for me. Then she would write a story that belonged to us alone. Ruyan was on the trending searches again. As a top-tier celebrity, it was nothing unusual for her to trend. But this time, she was trending with Makoto, her senior from the same company. 5 years since her debut, that girl, a star born for greatness, blazed with brilliance on stage. On screen, she was breathtakingly alive. At such a young age, she already held the Best Actress trophy. Yet not a single romantic scandal had ever followed her. One photo of her had broken out beyond the fandom. Most of all, she had just stepped down from a stage watched by thousands. Her dress trailed across the floor. Fans screamed like a tidal wave. Light fell across half her face. Fine sweat slid down her pale neck. Every glance was full of grace. She radiated a soul-stealing allure, but the other half of her face was steeped in shadow. Cold, restrained, almost untouchable, like a goddess who never betrayed a thought. Nothing in the world could tempt her to fall. Half vivid beauty, half silence. She was the brightest light in the entire venue. They said Ruyan was the brightest starlight over the Arctic. Impossible to keep, impossible to hold. All anyone could feel was that distant, stunning beauty, and a cold that cut to the bone. After the Ruyan Makoto topic, there was a red explosive trending tag. It came from a press conference. It was a video from the press conference where Ruyan, for the first time, broke from the script. Instead, she chose the ancient costume idol drama by Imperial decree. She shared the stage with Makoto. In the video, a reporter asked Ruyan, "Which line from the drama do you like most?" She smiled softly. She played a woman who gave her heart to the emperor male lead, a heroic female general who sacrificed everything. And lately, female leads who looked dashing and heroic on the battlefield were exactly what audiences loved. Ruyan turned her head. She lifted her eyes and met Makoto's gaze. She only reached Makoto's shoulder, yet she moved with delicate steps, dipped slightly, and gave a formal bow. Just like the female general in the drama, always devoted to the emperor. Her eyes were shaped like peach blossoms. They curved faintly. They brimmed with love. She said, "Ruyan is willing to be the brightest jewel upon your majesty's imperial crown. I am willing to expand your realm and spread your glory across the world. I am willing to stay by your side forever, like willow branches along the riverbank. May Ruyan's name be remembered by history together with yours. Ruyan is willing to offer everything she has. My emperor, my majesty." The entire room fell silent. Makoto played along and reached out. Smiling, he tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. Their eyes met. A soft current seemed to flow between them. Screams erupted in an instant. Camera flashes crossed and burst. Countless reporters thrust their microphones forward. The video stopped at that exact moment. The comment section was boiling over. Even Ruyan's fans had started celebrating. How is this not love? A spirited emperor and a dashing female general. Who wouldn't ship that? That look in Ruyan's eyes. If that isn't adoration, what is? After all these years, our girl finally likes someone. Without thinking, I touched the screen. On the screen, Ruyan's eyes were shining. A whole galaxy of stars seemed caught inside them. It was a look I had never seen before. Helplessly, I let out a sigh. Then I leaned back, resigned. I pinched the bridge of my nose. So this day had finally come. I had transmigrated into the book long ago. Back then, I was 15. Still in my second year of high school. This was a sweet romance novel. The female lead was Ruyan, an undisputed top-tier celebrity and newly crowned Best Actress. She was cool and distant. Yet only for the male lead, Makoto, did she reveal rare softness. She and Makoto were lovers reunited after years apart. They met in high school. Ruyan came from privilege. She was a true wealthy heiress. Makoto was a transfer student, handsome, charming, and carefree. According to the plot, in their final year of high school, Ruyan's family would suffer a terrible upheaval. The proud young heiress, once so far above everyone, would fall straight into the dust. Broken and pitiful, she would be saved by Ito Makoto. So she would never turn dark. Then, because Ito Makoto went abroad and for other reasons, they would reunite after years apart. With Ito Makoto beside her, Ruyan would bloom with him in the entertainment industry. Their romance would be watched and blessed by everyone. But after I arrived, Ito Makoto went abroad much earlier than he did in the original plot. He left while Ruyan was still testing his feelings. Ito Makoto completely missed the Liu family's downfall, so naturally he never got to save her. I was the one who held that 18-year-old girl, who had lost both parents overnight. I wrapped my arms around her thin, fragile waist. I stayed with her as she slowly crossed that dark stretch of time. She had never been so helpless. With red eyes, she cried silently beside my ear, as if she were clinging to her last lifeline. Later, I protected her as she returned to the spotlight. She had always been creation's finest work. She was discovered and brought into the entertainment industry. She made films. She released albums too. When her first film premiered, I went to see it. On the screen, she struggled and turned in the rain. Her eyes were like snow, sharp, cold, and piercingly clear. All around me, the audience gasped in awe. So, grinning, I called her while she was walking the red carpet. I said, "Ryan, I saw it." When she first stepped onto a stage to sing, I sat right in the middle section. The whole venue cheered and screamed for her. Countless LED lights shone for her. They shouted Ruyan's name. In that moment, I knew she would never be my girl. I was swallowed by the crowd, smiling as I watched her blaze at center stage. Yet my heart was full of bitterness and helplessness. I had walked with her through her hardest days, but I also knew her dazzling future did not belong to me. Ruyan probably didn't know that the original novel for the drama Ito Makoto starred in was written by me. Yet those sincere feelings I had written were now being spoken by Ruyan to Ito Makoto. I am willing to become your majesty's sharpest sword. Your majesty, my heart is lost among your boundless mountains and rivers. In countless moments, I realized that no matter how long I stayed beside Ruyan, that dazzling girl would never belong to me. But I had never wanted that much. I only wanted her to be happy and safe. I told myself, the cannon fodder male supporting character's time has come. Let go of the glory that was never yours. I slowly drank a bowl of porridge. Then I stared blankly at the freesias on the windowsill. I went back to my room and packed up everything. I didn't own much. It all fit perfectly into one small suitcase. I called Ruyan's phone. I called several times. On the third call, someone finally answered. It was Ruyan's assistant. He said, "Brother G, Ryan is changing costumes right now." Before he could finish, someone snatched the phone away in a rush. Ruyan's distant voice came through. She said, "Is it Jibota? Give it to me, hurry." Ruyan spoke as she walked outside. The noise faded behind her. She said, "Hello? Brother G, what's wrong?" At first, I didn't think much of it. But when her clear voice reached me, my heart still ached despite myself. I tilted my head back and thought of the 10 years we had walked together. Scene after scene faded away, then surged back like a tide. And yet, the long speech she had just said to Ito Makoto kept echoing in my mind. Everything we had been through felt as unchangeable as fate. So after a moment, I said, "Ruyan, I'm leaving." She froze and fell silent for a moment. Then she said lightly, "Brother G, are you going away to clear your head? Somewhere in the country or abroad? Are you leaving in a few days? You can tell Sister Sun. She books flights all the time. But, can you wait 2 days? I want my manager to rearrange my schedule. I want to go with you too." I heard there's a place with beautiful scenery. The sounds around her gradually grew noisy again. Someone called out, "Teacher Liu, filming is starting." She didn't answer me. I cut off her rambling. Word by word, I said, "That's not what I mean. I'm leaving you." I tried my hardest to sound like an old friend saying goodbye. "Goodbye, Ruyan." There was a brief silence. Then I hung up. I was a little afraid. Afraid she would hear the tremor in my voice. And afraid she would answer with relief, saying, "All right." This little apartment was something I bought before Ruyan became famous. Back then, I had saved a modest sum in royalties. I used it for the down payment. 2 bedrooms and 1 living room. She and I each had a small room. Later, she became popular. This place no longer suited her. There were too many people passing through. Entertainment reporters could easily follow her here. Her manager wouldn't allow her to have a cohabitation scandal break during her career ascent. Again and again, I helped her explain that we were just family. But I knew there was no way around it. For one brief moment, I had held burning starlight. But I understood with perfect clarity that she had never belonged to me. She moved into a highly private residential complex. Her schedule grew fuller by the day. She often called to tell me about new scripts she had taken and new dances she was rehearsing. But she was too busy. Later, whenever I called her, she was always at an event, filming, or preparing for a stage performance. Only after it ended would she call me back exhausted. My heart hurt seeing how tired she was. So after that, I stopped calling. I didn't have many friends here. I worked at a publishing house. After work, I came home and wrote a little. When I was writing by Imperial decree, I gave the female general a line. She would return through snow filling the sky. Behind her lay the vast royal city and thousands of soldiers and horses. She swung down from her horse. Then she bowed to the young king. She said, "I am willing to be your majesty's sharpest sword, to clear every obstacle from your path. I am willing to be your majesty's strongest shield, to shelter you from every storm." When I wrote those words, they were really my own inner confession. I wanted to be Liu Ryan's sword and shield, but I couldn't do anything. All I could give her was a single embrace. According to the plot, Liu Ryan would meet Makoto when he and other young men came to the company for auditions and reunite with him. They would meet again after years apart. In the book, when they met, she showed nothing on her face. With light steps, she brushed past Makoto, as if they were strangers. But inside, she was bursting with joy. Her heart was racing. So, for the one she loved, she secured a role. As the female supporting lead in the drama Makoto had joined, she had always been aloof and untouchable. Yet now she was so bold, so forward. Also, she could get closer to the person she loved. Starting from this press conference, their sweet romance would begin to bloom. I had stayed beside her for so many years. At last, the male lead had appeared. In that little apartment, I finished handing over my work and tying up loose ends. Then I dragged my suitcase to the door. The moment I opened it, I realized it was raining. The rain was heavy, striking the heart with a dull ache. I was about to close the door and get an umbrella when I saw a fair hand braced against the doorframe. The wrist was slender. On the middle finger was a beautiful silver iris ring. I opened the door wider. Then I let out a deep sigh. Liu Ryan stood at the doorway. It was raining outside, and she was soaked through. Damp strands of hair fell across her delicate brows and eyes. The grace that usually lit her every glance had dimmed by half. Her peach blossom eyes lowered. A faint redness showed at their corners. She was still wearing her costume from the set. Her wide sleeves had been hastily tied up. Rain slid down her small, delicate nose and looked almost like falling tears. She must have rushed here. Even now, she was still slightly out of breath. Her red lips were pressed pale. There was a trace of panic in her face. It was nothing like her usual cool distance. She looked like a child about to be abandoned. She stared at me stubbornly. Her voice was a little hoarse. She called my name. "Jibota, where are you going?" Rain rolled down her jawline and neck, then disappeared into her half-wet cross-collar. I paused, then asked, "Did you run out from the set?" She cut me off, lifting her head to look at me. She asked again, "Where are you going?" I rubbed my brow and said, "I'm going back to High City. It's too noisy here. I don't belong here anymore. I want to go back to High City. I want to set off fireworks on the beach at night and eat at the old wanton shop downstairs from my home." The hand she braced on the doorframe trembled slightly. She asked softly, "What about me?" I saw people already moving in the hallway, and she was a star with such high public recognition. I worried entertainment reporters or passers-by might photograph her. I sighed. Then I shifted slightly aside. I signaled for her to come in, though she hadn't lived here in a very, very long time. Her room and wardrobe were still kept for her. I urged her to take a hot shower. She looked up at me several times. She seemed hesitant. I was both exasperated and amused. I said, "I won't leave while you're showering." Only then did she murmur, "Oh." Her phone was on silent, but missed calls and WeChat messages kept popping up. Liu Ryan glanced at it, then flipped it face down on the coffee table. Holding her close, she went into the bathroom. I received a call from her assistant. Her assistant asked me in a panic whether Liu Ryan was with me. I gave a soft yes. I said, "Don't worry. She'll go back in a little while." The assistant finally relaxed. Then I called her manager as well. I asked them to handle any photos that might have been taken of her on the way here. After all that, only a short while had passed. For once, I lost focus. When it came to acting, She was actually very serious. Popular stars were always rumored to act like divas. She had never done that. By accident, I tapped open one of Ryan's new songs. From my phone, her voice sounded lingering and tender, full of longing and soft affection, like a confession sent from the stars. She sang, "You are my silent dependence." Yet I did not think anything was different. "Everything I am crowns you. No one knows this feeling of mine, one that never adds to your burden." Listening to it made my heart burn. But the bullet comments rolled by. Makoto got top billing. Ryan must have put in a lot of effort, right? Love that stays hidden and restrained is the most moving. Guys, after thinking about it, I felt deeply embarrassed for that little bit of wishful thinking just now. But according to the original plot, it should be this way. She writes songs for him. She gives everything for him. Unknowingly, she places all the best things in his hands. If her love in high school burned as fiercely as the blazing sun, then after all these hardships, that love had grown deeper, heavier, and more hidden, like a moonlit sea, quietly shimmering. But anyone falling for Ryan would make perfect sense, because she really was that lovable. The song was slow and gentle, as if she were singing softly by my ear. The moment I listened, I drifted away. When I heard Ryan come out, I looked up by instinct. Then I paused the song, fooling no one but myself. Ryan had changed into a white silk blouse. Her collarbones were half revealed at the neckline. Her hair had been towel-dried halfway. The shower seemed to have eased her quite a bit. A little of her usual soft allure seeped from her bones. Hearing that familiar melody, she froze for a moment. Then she smiled, sly and bright. She said, "You were listening to my new song." I nodded. I said, "It's pretty good." But she stopped speaking. A blush crept up to the tips of her ears. She looked as if she did not care. After a soft hum, the mood sank into silence. Neither of us seemed to know what to say. My high-speed train would leave in a few hours. I had no choice but to say goodbye to her. I told her, "Next time, don't run off without a word. Don't just disappear without telling anyone." They were all worried sick. Ryan had always hated being lectured, but this time, she listened quietly. I said, "I've already bought my ticket. It's raining outside. You don't need to see me off. If you ever think of me sometimes, come have a beer with me when you pass through High City." So farewells were not always tearful. Sometimes they were just two people restrained enough to remain dignified friends. She stayed silent for a long time. I sighed, then stood and prepared to leave. But when I passed by her, my sleeve was caught in her hand. She said, "I won't come find you for a drink. I won't just happen to pass through High City." She lifted her eyes and looked at me with stubborn resolve. The corners of her eyes were faintly red. For one brief moment, I thought she was about to cry. After all these years, after enduring so much pain, she had only cried on the afternoon she lost her parents. She had held me and cried without making a sound. I bent down slightly and said patiently, "Ryan, have you ever considered that you may simply be used to having me beside you?" Actually, back then, no matter who had come to embrace you, you would have accepted it. She froze, her face turning deathly pale, as if I had humiliated her. She stared straight at me. Through gritted teeth, she said, "Boda, do you even have a heart? It could only be you. It will only ever be you." Just as the moment froze, my phone happened to ring. Somehow, my ringtone had become Ryan's new song, and it started right at the chorus. "My everything crowns you. No one knows this feeling that adds no burden to you." I felt a little awkward. Ryan was still clutching my sleeve, so I answered the call with my other hand. The call was from the Imperial decree team. The production had only recently announced the cast. They had held the press conference. By now, they had probably filmed a small portion. They wanted me to stay with the production crew and review the plot, then work with the screenwriters to refine the story and adjust its structure. I hesitated. If I joined the crew on set, I would probably end up seeing Ryan and Makoto many times, and I had only just been trying to leave. On the phone, they said very politely, "We all truly hope to present your work to the audience in its best possible form. So, we sincerely hope you can take part." In the end, I still nodded. Then I suddenly remembered. Ryan did not know I had written this novel. But when I lowered my head, I saw that her thin lips, pressed tight a moment ago, had curved into a faint smile. She propped her chin on one hand. Her expression was relaxed. Her delicate brows and eyes shone with a shifting glow. There was not the slightest surprise on her face. I raised my voice and said, Don't tell me you knew I wrote by Imperial decree. Her eyes curved with her smile. She curled her legs up and hugged her knees, then nestled into the sofa. She tilted her head slightly. With a proud little pout, she said, Teacher G, please guide me well. Just like that midsummer years ago, when she sat by the window. The whole tree rang with cicadas. The girl's profile was tender and full of feeling. With the corners of her lips lifted, she said, So it's G-Boda. Please guide me well. She was always like this. Clearly, she had never needed my help at all. I told Ruyan to keep her distance from me on set, to act as if we did not know each other. She lifted her eyes. Very reluctantly, she gave a small O. By Imperial decree, mainly told the story of an emperor, from his days as crown prince to his rule over the realm. Makoto played the male lead, Wang Yu. The female lead was his childhood sweetheart, the prime minister's daughter. The second female lead was an enemy state princess. The third female lead was the female general played by Ruyan. She did not have many scenes. It looked more like she had taken the role to support Makoto than for the role itself. The crew arranged a room for me at the hotel here. I had just finished unpacking and stepped out when I ran into Shen Caiyun, who played the first female lead. She entered the entertainment industry while she was still in university. After graduation, she continued down the acting path. Now, she was already a rising young actress with solid talent and a strong reputation. Coincidentally, she had also been in my university department. Back then, because a few roommates kept teasing us, spreading nonsense like, Boda's 3 peaks pierce the clouds. One colored cloud guards the mountain crest. The two of us ended up with quite a few misunderstandings at university. Shen Caiyun was wearing a mask. Only her dark eyes were visible. Her aura leaned intellectual and refined. She paused when she saw me. Her manager had probably mentioned it to her. She quickly realized who I was. Her eyes curved in a smile above the mask. She said, So it really is you. Long time no see. It's G-Boda, I said. Yeah. It happened to be the afternoon. The crew had a script. Table read before filming began. The lead actors needed to read through the script together and test the emotional beats. She looked up at me and said, Since we ran into each other, let's go together. I had no reason to refuse. I nodded. Back in university, Shen Caiyun and I had only been nodding acquaintances, neither close nor distant. She spoke with just the right warmth. Picking things up again now. Did not feel especially awkward. When we entered the room, almost everyone had arrived. But at a glance, I could see Ruyan lazily curled up in a corner. She wore a black cutout top. One hand rested on her script. Her gaze lifted. It landed on me first, then flicked to Shen Caiyun beside me. The corners of her mouth dipped unhappily. She looked annoyed. After everyone arrived, they each introduced their roles. I had not seen Makoto in a long time. He looked even more refined and easygoing than in online photos. When our eyes met, he smiled faintly, not surprised at all. A typical approachable young leading man type. Everyone ran through the lines. The scene was the first meeting between Song Ying, played by Ruyan, and the male lead, Wang Yu. Song Ying's background was tragic. As a child, she fought beggars for food and cold sparrows for scraps of bone, until the male lead appeared, like a sliver of light brightening her hopeless life. In this scene, Song Ying was still in her teens. She had been brutally beaten by a shopkeeper for stealing buns. Covered in wounds, she collapsed in the rain. Then she saw the male lead's fine carriage, its noble horse hung with golden bells, passing by. Ruyan slipped into character quickly. She was clearly still wearing a black shirt, holding a script, her back held straight, yet her expression was exactly that of a girl nearly beyond hope, dying in the rain. There was no difference at all. She trembled from the cold, yet with stubborn effort, she forced her eyes open, as if afraid that if she closed them, she would become a dry skeleton by the roadside. Makoto held his script and read the line calling his attendant's name. He leaned lazily against the back of his chair, just like that young crown prince raised in privilege. He said, Ziheng, why has the carriage stopped? It was Song Ying, collapsed across the roadside, blocking the nobleman's carriage. Just as the driver's whip was about to lash Song Ying, Wang Yu lifted the deep purple carriage curtain. From above, he glanced down at her. Lightly, he stopped him. Makoto caught the crown prince's tone and read, Forget it. She is only a beggar child. Have someone take her to a doctor. Leave her some silver. The rain battered Song Ying until she could barely open her eyes. All she could see was one corner of the tall, magnificent carriage curtain. Inside was lavish splendor. The downpour filling the sky could not seep into that carriage at all. The noble, commanding crown prince leaned out slightly. With effortless ease, he gave her a way to live. Covered in wounds, she lay in the mud. The rain struck her until she could barely keep her eyes open. Yet as if afraid the dream in the rain would shatter, she asked, with daring impropriety, "Who are you?" The young man smiled softly. It seemed both contemptuous and incredulous. He said nothing. The deep purple carriage curtain fell closed again. That was their first meeting. It became the dream Song Ying could never forget. Ruyan leaned back. In that instant, she returned to being that coolly distant girl. Ruyan suddenly spoke. "There is something I don't quite understand." Even if Huang Yu, at her most desperate moment, reached out and gave her a few pieces of silver, Song Ying might be grateful. She might repay him with her life, but she would never fall recklessly in love with him. I looked at her. Her gaze met mine for 1 second. Ruyan leaned forward. Softly, she said, unless what he gave her was an embrace in the pouring rain, a warm embrace that could hold back every kind of cold. Ruyan was utterly certain, as if, in that instant, she was Song Ying herself. She was that certain of herself. Memories began to spill over. I froze. Then I spoke to. But that is impossible. At this point, Huang Yu is a crown prince. He may feel pity for commoners, but he would never casually embrace a stranger covered in mud. A young girl who might already be dead. Ruyan's eyes were dark. Tiny flecks of light turned deep in them, like a starry sky flowing backward. But Makoto suddenly said, "But if it were an attendant, that would be all right, wouldn't it? If Huang Yu's attendant did it in his place, and gave her that embrace, it would still make sense. But why would an attendant embrace a dying beggar child?" Ruyan closed her eyes briefly. Her thin lips pressed together. Then she said lightly, "Who knows? Maybe it was pity." I stared blankly at her. Suddenly, I remembered the year of the Liu family's downfall. The girl once high above everyone had fallen into the dirt overnight. In a single night, she lost her parents, and the Bellflowers were thrown into the wind. I slowly moved closer to her. Then I gently held that despairing, suffering girl. Would she think that was pity? I had never gotten an answer. Still, this part of the plot was slightly revised. Song Ying, played by Ruyan, now had, in this first meeting in the pouring rain, one added misplaced embrace. After the table read ended, I went back to the hotel. As I passed the fire stairwell, someone lightly tugged at my sleeve and pulled me into the darkness. The door was half closed. A little light slipped in. I looked at the girl before me. Ruyan was pressed close in front of me. The space was painfully narrow. Every breath seemed filled with her snow-like scent. I lowered my head and asked, utterly confused, "What are you doing?" She tipped her head up slightly. A hint of a smile appeared in her peach blossom eyes. She said, "You told me to pretend I don't know you in front of others, so I can only talk to you here. Isn't that right?" Uneasy, I shifted back a little. I moved back again. I lifted my chin, trying to look more confident, but my jaw accidentally brushed her forehead. The warm touch came and vanished at once. For one instant, we were too close. I asked her, "So what is it?" Just then, someone suddenly walked past in the corridor. It seemed to be her assistant looking for her. The assistant murmured, "Yan was just here. How did she suddenly disappear?" When I turned back again, I met her black eyes. The faint traces of amusement had all withdrawn. From the fire stairwell door, the sliver of light fell dimly across her face. That face, hailed as the pinnacle of the entertainment industry, looked even more deep-set and captivating like this. She licked her lips. One hand braced against the wall. She rose onto her toes, barely bringing herself level with my lips. She pressed her lips together several times, yet still could not speak. If I had not known her, I might really have thought she was nervous. No matter how grand the occasion, no matter how vast the stage, Ruyan never had stage fright. Yet here, in this silent closeness, inside this tiny emergency stairwell with no audience, she turned one sentence over many times before saying it. She asked softly, "Who would be willing to give someone who had fallen into the abyss an embrace?" I looked at her lowered peach blossom eyes. For a moment, I could not tell whether she was asking about Song Ying in the drama, or Ruyan in real life. The year Ruyan turned 18, what greeted her was not a dazzling birthday banquet fit for a princess. First, Makoto went abroad without a word. She held the Bellflowers meant to confess her feelings, but they were useless. Then the Liu family went bankrupt. Her father died by suicide in prison after being accused. Her mother could not bear the shock, fell ill, and died. In a single night, she went from a girl cherished like a jewel among flowers to someone whose family was destroyed and whose loved ones were dead. Back then, I searched all of High City and found her in an old alley. She was leaning against a crumbling cement wall. The sunset was sinking lower. The freshly picked bellflowers lay scattered in the dirt. I had found her at last. Yet I did not know if I should go near. I was not Ito Makoto. To her, I was probably only someone whose name she knew. Who would want the sight of their weakness and ruin, exposed to the eyes of someone who had nothing to do with them? What was I thinking then? I only looked at her with aching sadness, thinking she might need an embrace. I had nothing, but I had an embrace to give. I slowly walked over. She leaned against the wall and glared at me fiercely, yet her eyes were clearly red. When she saw it was me, she froze. Then, in silence, she lowered her eyes to the flowers on the ground. My heart clenched. I thought she would tell me to get lost, but she only gritted her teeth. Like a wounded kitten, she turned her face away and covered her eyes with her palm. I saw tears seep through her fingers. That always proud girl looked as fragile as snow beneath the sunset. In that moment, the sunset fell into my heart. I had never been so brave in my life. I stepped forward and gently held her. Silently, I thought, "Don't be sad. I will stay with you forever and ever." Now, 25-year-old Liu Ruyan asked me, who would embrace someone who had fallen into the abyss? Sweat dampened my palms. I lowered my eyes and said, "I don't know." Liu Ruyan took another step closer. Her expression softened. Biting her lip, she said, "You don't know? Then let me tell you. Do you know what pity is? Jiboda. When people see Song Ying, covered in mud and barely alive, to show their pity, some will toss her silver. Some will give her an embrace. What about you? What were you thinking?" I froze as she drew gently closer. It was like a sigh, like a plea. Light and shadow fell into her eyes. She said, "Tomorrow's scene, Song Ying's first meeting in the pouring rain, has been revised at the last minute. They still haven't found the right person to embrace Song Ying. It is only a few seconds of footage. Will you act it with me? I need you. No one but you." I studied her features seriously. Her vivid beauty carried a trace of madness. She pleaded, "Just think of it as keeping me company one last time." I thought, "Then just for this stretch of road, I will stay with you once more. One last time." I said softly, "All right." She was too close to me. Every inch between us was filled with her breath. My heart felt buried under snow. It was bitterly cold, yet I still could not stop my heart from stirring for her. I walked toward the exit. She did not stop me. Just as my hand almost touched the door, she suddenly called out to me. I turned around. Liu Ruyan's eyes and brows were sunk in light and shadow. She looked at me quietly and said, "Jiboda." I thought she was going to say something important, but she only said softly, "Good night." When I left the fire stairwell, I looked all around, like a guilty husband who had done something wrong. Behind me, Liu Ruyan laughed very softly. The next day was Song Ying's first meeting with Huang Yu, because I somehow had an extra scene. When the director had Ito Makoto do his makeup and styling, he had Ito Makoto's makeup artist handle mine too. Ito Makoto had his own private makeup artist. I stood outside the door, just about to knock, when I faintly heard my name through it. My raised fingers paused and did not fall. Inside the dressing room, Ito Makoto's assistant asked, "Brother Ito, why did you speak up and let him take part of your scene?" That role came out of nowhere. Ito Makoto gave an unreadable laugh and said, "Do you think I really wanted to suggest it? It was Liu Ruyan, wasn't it? She suddenly pushed for it, and it doesn't matter. Anyway, it is a role that doesn't even count as male supporting. Adding it or not makes no difference. It won't affect anything. It just lets him experience more clearly what being a side character really means." I gave a bitter smile. Without changing expression, I withdrew my hand. When I turned around, I saw Shen Caiyun standing right behind me. She had probably heard everything. I waved a hand and pointed at the door. I mouthed, "I will go in later." Shen Caiyun could not help smiling with her eyes. She said softly, "You can stay this calm after hearing people badmouth you, Teacher G." I shook my head and said, No, come. I just thought that what he said was true, whether inside the story or outside it. I was a role that did not even count as a male supporting character. By the time filming began, heavy rain was actually falling. The crew did not even need to worry about it. As for me, I played the attendant. As the carriage moved through the pouring rain, it met an obstacle. A dying girl lay in the mud. I rose and lifted the curtain for Huang Yu to look outside. The carriage was already very close to the girl lying in the mud. From my angle, I could even see rain pooling in the small hollows beside her high-nose bridge. The road beaten by rain was a churn of mud. It was already hard for the carriage to pass. The filthy, ragged girl curled slightly in on herself, kept company only by the wet, freezing mud. A faint wash of blood spread around her. Long ago, a very harsh film critic said she had overwhelming spiritual presence. Someone like me, with no acting experience, was pulled into the scene by Liu Ruyan in an instant. She was a girl with nowhere left to turn, a beggar child in this world, pitied only by the rootless rain. Song Ying's eyelids trembled twice. Rain struck her wounds and beat into her eyes. Her face was deathly pale, yet she still struggled to lift her eyes and look toward me through the curtains of rain. I even felt there was still a faint goose-yellow shadow in her eyes. Behind her, there was only rain pouring down in sheets. She was a beggar child, and also a child abandoned by heaven. She had nothing at all. Huang Yu's voice sounded behind me. Zihang, what is it? Only then did I recover from the shock of her gaze. I answered, a dying beggar child is blocking the road. The carriage cannot pass. Song Ying's black hair spilled loose and mingled with the mud. She lifted her head and looked at the carriage that should never have lifted its curtain for her. Her hands curled in humiliation. She tried to struggle to her feet, but her legs and feet were broken. She had no way out. She could only crawl little by little toward the roadside. She fell into the mud without making a sound. Rain battered her whole body. In that instant, it struck me with incomparable force. I understood why the attendant was willing to give her an embrace. Anyone who, in utter ruin, could still preserve a shred of pride and dignity would move the heart of anyone who saw her. I thought of Liu Ruyan at 18. After the Liu family's downfall, flowers no longer paused for her. Malice surged in and swallowed her whole. After that embrace, I did not see her for a long time. The first time I found her, it was at dusk. They said the Liu family had left behind enormous debts. Liu Ruyan was living in misery then. In the novel, it was only a few lines, but seeing it with my own eyes, it was countless days and nights for a girl once treated like treasure. For the first time, I heard Liu Ruyan cry in helpless humility, kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. The debt collectors were vile. They cornered a young girl like her, and even hired thugs to lie in wait for her every day. Every day, I arrived one step before Liu Ruyan and drove those thugs away. Until one day, I lost the fight. I braced myself against the wall and stood up. Only when I walked out did I realize that just beyond the wall, Liu Ruyan was standing in the shadows. I did not know how long she had been there. She stood in the shadows, watching me cry without a sound. The sky outside was so beautiful. Sunset clouds filled the heavens. She handed me a bandage, wiped the tear stains from the corners of her eyes, then turned and left. I followed her slowly, neither too close nor too far. We passed through the clamoring crowd. Twilight covered the long street. The people gradually thinned out. She stopped for a long while before turning back, her gaze fixed straight on me. She looked at the bruises by my brow and lips, and asked with stubborn defiance, "How long have you been following me? How much longer are you going to watch?" A joke. I lifted my head and said I only wanted to keep you company. The corner of her mouth twitched. She said coldly, "I don't need that. Do you understand?" "Jiboda," I sighed. I turned my head away. I knew she did not need me beside her. But what else could I do? It felt as if I could do nothing at all. Yet she suddenly softened her voice and said, "Stop worrying about me. Jiboda, go." Liu Ruyan in that moment somehow merged with Song Ying before me, lying in the rain and mud, becoming one and the same. I stepped down from the carriage. The umbrella tilted under the heavy rain. The cold pierced to the bone. I embraced her very gently, as if across time and space I were holding Liu Ruyan from many years ago. I said softly, "The road ahead is long. Cherish your life." The sound of rain receded. Beneath the cold rain, I heard her burning heartbeat. Liu Ruyan at 18. Liu Ruyan at 25. Their roads were both so long. The director called cut on the scene. I was still holding Liu Ruyan. Her assistant hurried over with an umbrella to shield us from the rain. Beneath her bangs, soaked by rain, I saw a pair of dark, bright, stubborn eyes. My senses returned. I let go. My trembling hand happened to brush over her burning skin. After changing in the dressing room, I came out and unexpectedly ran into Shen Caiyun. She was waiting outside and handed me a cup of warm ginger soup. I froze for a moment. She pressed her lips together and said, I prepared it for you. It should help drive out the cold. I thanked her, but only took a small sip. I had never liked the taste of ginger. Shen Caiyun was beautiful, the kind of lesbian fandom favorite people would love. Someone had once made a crack ship of her and Ruyan, and the fan edit got a little popular. After some time, thinking of that video still made me want to laugh. Shen Caiyun raised her brow slightly and asked, What is it? I shook my head. Holding back a laugh, I said, I just thought of something funny. Shen Caiyun did not press me. She smiled and said, Teacher G, your first time acting, and you were already that immersed. That was impressive. Hearing her say that, I relaxed a little. I had been worried I performed badly and dragged down the quality of this satellite TV drama. But silently, I thought, if I managed to get into character, it was because I saw the Ruyan in the rain. She did not have a single line, yet every movement was full of heartache. I was still thinking about the words Makoto had left unfinished. Who wanted me to play a role like this? Was it Ruyan? But why would she? I had been soaked by rain, and I had drunk a little hot soup. My thoughts were starting to drift. Just as I was about to speak, I saw Ruyan. She walked over carrying a cup. She did not look well, and her lips were still pale. Very naturally, she took from my hand the ginger soup I had only sipped twice. She did not even acknowledge Shen Caiyun. Instead, she placed the thermos cup in my hands and said, Don't you hate ginger most of all? If you don't like it, why force yourself to drink that much? Sister Sun made this soup for you herself. Her manner was familiar, but her gaze was far from friendly. After saying that, she lifted her head in a huff and bit her lip, looking indignant. Teacher Shen, did you need something? Shen Caiyun pressed her lips into a smile. She glanced at me and said, Since you have things to discuss, I'll leave first. I watched Shen Caiyun walk away. Then, a little helplessly, I said, Didn't we agree to pretend we didn't know each other? Like we weren't close. Ruyan gave a cold snort, but her voice was clearly aggrieved as she said, Gee Boda, you pretend not to know me. But for her, you force yourself to drink ginger soup you hate. You even chatted and laughed with her. You're so mean. I keenly sensed her hostility toward Shen Caiyun. I asked, Did something happen between you two before? Ruyan fell silent for a brief moment. She looked away and said awkwardly, No. Then she added, Not exactly. It's one-sided on my part. She sounded quite justified about it. Fine, Miss Liu. During a break on set, I passed by Shen Caiyun. Her tablet was playing the newly aired episode. It was the scene where Song Ying first met Huang Yu. It had paused right as the attendant in the pouring rain held Song Ying in his arms. The rain rolled down her face, as if she were shedding tears. Ruyan's face was truly the creator's masterpiece. She was absurdly beautiful from every angle. Shen Caiyun took off her earphones and called me over. She pointed to the empty seat beside her, but I instinctively glanced around. Shen Caiyun laughed softly. Relax. She isn't here. Shen Caiyun tilted her head and smiled. Her presence was gentle and refined. In the drama, she was the Prime Minister's daughter. Off-screen, she was an intellectual goddess. But when she smiled, she had the warmth of a spring flowing slowly and softly. In a low voice, she said, She seems very hostile toward me. I shook my head. I don't know why either. Shen Caiyun lifted the tablet slightly. Curious, I leaned in to look. Seeing myself appear in a television drama felt rather strange and new. I said, I didn't expect it to air so soon. Shen Caiyun gave a soft hum. Then, out of nowhere, she said, No one expected Ruyan to want to play Song Ying. In that instant, my interest was suddenly buried under snow. I looked away. I answered yes. I thought, yes. Who could have imagined that someone as proud as her would go this far for Makoto? I looked into the distance. A dense crowd of crew members and countless cameras surrounded Ruyan and Makoto. They were facing each other down. There were too many people between us, so I could not see clearly. Shen Caiyun followed my gaze. I gave a short laugh. I let out a laugh and said he was only there as cover for Makoto. But she suddenly paused. Her beautiful fingers lightly traced the small table. After a long while, she gave a helpless smile. Then she laughed aloud and said, Gee, Boda, you really are slow. I turned back. Shen Caiyun said, Don't tell me you still haven't realized that Ruyan treats you very differently. It is just like a long time ago. Back in university, the whole department knew I liked you. You were the only one who didn't. I froze. Shen Caiyun's words came too suddenly. I did not know how to respond. But she only laughed softly, at peace with it. It was many years ago. I suddenly remembered what Makoto had said. Someone who did not even count as a supporting character could not affect the plot. I shook my head and said, she was not like this before. Now, I paused, then added, she is only used to having me around for too long. She just does not want me to leave. Shen Caiyun answered me patiently, as if she were gently guiding a clueless junior back in school. She said, many people want to get close to Ruyan. So why is she only willing to stay by your side? Jibota, you should take a proper look for yourself. I actually had no answer. Shen Caiyun changed the subject. Have you watched the drama? The comments are all very positive. While I was still dazed, filming wrapped over there. Ruyan walked toward us against the light. Everything around her was gilded in gold. Her peach blossom eyes were half-lidded, and she gave Shen Caiyun and me a lukewarm glance. The director was very pleased with what they had just shot. He spotted Shen Caiyun and me with a cheerful grin, as if he had suddenly remembered that old university joke. With a silly chuckle, he recited, Bota's 3 peaks pierce the clouds. 1 colored cloud guards the mountain crest. I was speechless. Shen Caiyun was speechless. Ruyan was speechless. She shot the director a resentful glare, forcing him to swallow whatever teasing words he had been about to say. Ruyan probably found it all pointless again. She turned and walked off in another direction. Shen Caiyun lifted her chin slightly and asked me, why not go comfort her? I watched her retreating figure, feeling somewhat powerless. I shook my head and said, forget it. I'm tired. In truth, the rest of the plot had not changed much. The drama was filmed as it aired. In actual production, they had already reached Huang Yu's open and covert power struggles, right before he ascended the throne. Online, only the first episode had aired. I only saw the finished cut when I went online, because news had leaked early that Ruyan had scenes in the first episode. The hype was intense. I turned off most of the bullet comments and focused on the show. The beginning covered some of Huang Yu's daily life and laid out the background. When the story reached Jimo, it was that heavy rain scene. I sat there lost in thought for a long time. Then I turned the bullet comments back on and watched it again. The screen filled with comments like, my heart aches for Song Ying. How can Yanyan be lying in the mud? An embrace. She received an embrace. Is this the secondary ship, guys? I ship it. Ruyan's acting is absolutely incredible. I watched it in the break room, holding the tablet. I had just finished and was about to put it away, when a voice suddenly sounded. That person sneered, the internet seems pretty fond of you two. Makoto stood in front of me. He must have glimpsed the bullet comments I had just been reading. His assistant said in a slightly shrill voice, that was supposed to be our top male star scene. His tone was snide and passive-aggressive. His words were ugly. Makoto only smiled and answered his assistant, it doesn't matter. It is just a tiny role with a few lines. Yanyan is simply popular, so more people are getting dragged into shipping it. They are all delusional fans, nothing more. I said coldly, interesting. Back when we were reading lines and discussing the plot. You were right there. If you objected, why didn't you dare say it then? Why come here looking for scraps from me? Makoto probably had not expected me to push back. His smile nearly slipped. His displeasure pleased me greatly. The assistant spoke again, dripping with sarcasm. Let him be a petty man drunk on a little success. In a while, Yanyan will release a music video for her new song. Our top male star will be the male lead. Who will care about this tiny bit of traffic then? My hands paused as I packed my things. Only then did I remember that this did exist. According to the original plot, Ruyan would soon have a music video for a new song. Naturally, the male lead would be given to Makoto. I rubbed my temples. Good, everything was following the original plot. I could step away as a matter of course, without hesitation. On set, Makoto and Ruyan barely interacted at all. But who could know? The love behind it, deepened by the passing years. Yet in the next second, a young woman's teasing voice rang out. The young woman gave a scoffing laugh and leaned halfway against the doorframe. When her peach blossom eyes smiled, they were full of feeling. But when they did not, like now, they were chilling. Ruyan's brows were tightly furrowed. She said, each word distinct. Who said that? Makoto and his assistant both turned to look. Their faces had gone a little pale. Ruyan continued, why didn't I know? I had a new song. Makoto called her Yanyan. Ruyan lifted her eyelids slightly, then rolled her eyes. In a cool, clear voice, she said. Are we close? I looked at Liu Ruyan, then at Ito Makoto. But Liu Ruyan suddenly turned to me. Her peach blossom eyes curved into a smile, as if they had swept away a whole river of cold wind. Falling petals seemed to scatter everywhere. She reached out her hand. Brother Boda, aren't you coming over? She asked me to wait outside for a while. After about a minute, she came out. I had only heard faint murmurs and caught nothing clearly. She said it was settled. Liu Ruyan gave a little huff and said, you wouldn't come comfort me, so I had no choice but to come find you. You have changed now. Boda, my classmate. If someone had mocked you like that before, you would have punched him already. What is wrong with you now? Only belatedly did I realize that Liu Ruyan actually wanted me to put Ito Makoto in his place. A flicker of joy welled up in me, but I still tested her and said, he is Ito Makoto. Liu Ruyan moved closer to me. The scent on her was like fresh snow. She asked, what did Ito Makoto do? I fell silent. What could I say? I could hardly tell her that Ito Makoto was the man she had flirted with at the press conference. The man she was willing to give everything for. The male lead arranged in the script of her life. In the end, I only said softly, he is your male lead. Liu Ruyan froze for a moment. She looked into my eyes and slowly said, he is not. She took another step closer. Her red lips were pressed tightly together. She said, Boda, you asked me. You asked whether I was simply used to having you by my side. I told you it was never habit. But I want to ask you too. All those years you stayed with me, was it only because of that little bit of pity? You never asked about the press conference. You never asked why I wanted you to play Ziheng. You act like some impossibly noble person, giving a little light to someone trapped in the abyss. Then, once she finally manages to climb out, you say nothing more and decide to leave the stage. Liu Ruyan's peach blossom eyes reddened. A tear hung from her lower lashes. It was as if a goddess had suddenly revealed her weakness. She suddenly reached out and hugged me very lightly. So lightly, it was like a feather. Yet the touch felt soaked in the taste of blood. Liu Ruyan said softly, go. For some reason, my eyes stung. I held my emotions in check and said, word by word, Liu Ruyan, what if life is a script? What if both you and I, Ito Makoto and Shen Caiyun, are just characters in that script? Fate may have been fixed from the very beginning. She cut me off. My life is not something a script can decide. Please believe me. Even if this is a script, I will rewrite it. Liu Ruyan truly could rewrite the script, at least in this drama. She did, relying solely on that rain-soaked embrace in the first episode, and a series of later performances. Without adding lines or changing scenes, she still made the audience imagine a whole history between her and Ziheng. 800 rounds of love-hate drama. It was still on set. I sat beside the monitor. Liu Ruyan scrolled through her phone without lifting her head. Her eyes curved with obvious delight. I glanced at her several times. Only then did she slowly spare me a look. With spoiled defiance, she said, what? I turned away and said, nothing. But she lifted her phone and held it up before me. On it were comments from netizens about Ziheng and Song Ying. My head ached at the exclamation marks filling the screen. Still, I smiled faintly. She tilted her face slightly. Her profile was that of a flawless goddess. I brought up that time, the press conference where she spoke that line to Ito Makoto. Liu Ruyan pouted and said, you are only willing to ask me now. She tugged at the corner of her mouth and said seriously, I actually wanted to test how my fans would react to me dating. Liu Ruyan turned and looked at me earnestly. She said, I sensed it long ago. Ito Makoto's existence matters a great deal to you. If you believed I was deeply in love with him, you should have stepped closer and learned the truth yourself, instead of choosing to leave my side. The surrounding voices faded away. I suddenly realized this world was not just cold paper unfolding. No one's fate was already arranged. I was not anyone's male supporting character. I was the master of my own life. If I refused even to reach out first, how could I claim my love was real? After by Imperial declared, its rating soared. Its word of mouth was excellent. After the work ended, I still decided to return to High City. When I had finished packing, Shen Caiyun knocked on my door to see me off. She said a few polite farewell words. Then, at the end, she leaned against the door and said to me, actually, I met Liu Ruyan a long time ago. Puzzled, I waited for her to continue. A trace of apology touched her expression. It was after our university anniversary event had wrapped up. The time we all went out to eat. That was also the time when so many people teased us and told us to get together. They even recited that poem they had found from who knows where. That day, Ruyan came. She stood far away from me. We looked at each other for a while, and then she left. The look in her eyes was so sorrowful. Only after she left did I learn that she had come to find you. But in the end, she never told you. For some reason, I suddenly thought back to Ruyan at 20. Once, she stood under a street lamp, trying to put on her gloves. But her body was trembling like a sieve, and she could not get them on no matter how she tried. She frowned and stepped half a pace away from me. Then she slowly crouched down, hugging her knees. In a trembling voice, she asked if I pitied her. Only now did I understand that she had once come looking for me. Ruyan was not with the production crew today. I only received her message after I boarded the high-speed train. She sent me a question mark. For a long while, I watched the screen show. The other party is typing. In the end, she sent for words, "Be careful on the road." After a while, she sent to more words, "Wait for me." I said yes. The first thing I did after getting home was go eat at the old wonton shop downstairs. The owner had gotten used to seeing me. She smiled and asked me, "Why didn't you come eat with your girlfriend?" I asked, "My girlfriend?" She said, "Yes, that pretty young girl. After you went to university, she often came here to eat." I bit into a wonton. The wrapper was thin, the filling generous. A song was playing in the shop. It happened to be Ruyan's song from a while ago. "You are my silent dependence. Yet I never felt anything was different. Everything I am crowns you." No one knew the feeling behind this sweet burden. I suddenly realized just then that perhaps, all these years, I had never been the only one following her. My Imperial decree was still just as popular. It updated to episodes a week. Even so, I could not quite settle my heart. At dusk, I went out for a walk. I happened to see a huge LED screen hanging on a building. It said that 1 week later, Ruyan's concert would be held in High City. My phone rang. I answered it without thinking. For a long time, no one spoke on the other end. I lifted my head and looked at the LED screen. On the giant poster, Ruyan was half-lidded, her expression cool and distant. The use of light and shadow was exquisite. It made it impossible to look away. At the very top were 3 words, Northern Lights. After a long silence, she finally called out, "Jibota." I smiled and said, "Classmate Liu, happy rap." I thought for a moment, then added, "Zihang knows song Ying likes him." I hung up the phone. After Ruyan debuted, she kept her personal information tightly guarded. She had high public recognition, yet remained very low-key. She did not even go on variety shows. Then a video suddenly appeared. It was footage from my university anniversary event. She stood at the very edge of the crowd. The camera swept past her. The resolution was not high. She was staring fixedly at the stage. Her expression was rarely so relaxed, tired, yet deeply affectionate. The video was only a few seconds long, but it caused a huge stir. Fans were all discussing the video, following the trail of clues from it. They almost traced it back to me. Ruyan's Weibo account, which practically never updated, finally posted a message. "Hush, hush. Do not talk about it anymore." The fans seemed to understand something. In perfect unison, they fell silent. It was as if the whole world was cooperating with her. Some even older videos of Ruyan were dug up. She had her role suppressed. She was targeted by teammates from her idol group. People who had watched her be pushed aside suddenly realized that this young girl had once had dim, shadowed eyes. She had once been defeated and down on her luck. Who had picked her up and wiped the dust from her after she had struggled for so many years? Who had straightened her shoulders again? When Ruyan's concert began, I bought a ticket and entered with the people who loved her. The venue was filled with light-up fan signs. I blended into the crowd. I listened to them love her songs, love her, and my heart felt utterly at peace. The entire venue went dark. Only she, on the stage, shone with dazzling light. For the first time, I heard Ruyan sing Northern Lights all the way through. From the Northern Lights slipping into the polar night to embrace her at 18, to the line, "My everything crowns you." The entire venue listened in silence. Now she looked just like that photo of hers that had gone viral. Light fell across half her face. The other half was steeped in shadow. She should have looked like a cool, untouchable goddess utterly composed. But as she played the piano, her eyes and brows were filled with softness, and so the divine beauty fell, breathtakingly, into the mortal world. Half radiant, half silent, she was the brightest light in the entire venue. Distant and overwhelming. but she was singing of the northern lights that belonged to her. After Northern Lights ended, the whole venue stayed silent for a long time. Deep feeling is contagious. Everyone was moved by her. Ruyan suddenly gave a soft laugh and broke the silence. She said, "I'm sorry. At the Imperial decree press conference some time ago, what I said misled everyone. My favorite line wasn't that long, drawn-out speech after all." Lowering her eyes with a smile, she said, "I only got one line right. I hope my name can endure together with his." Those two sentences carried far too much meaning. First, they denied any possibility of a romance with Makoto. Second, she truly did have someone in her heart. The venue began to bubble like boiling water. Ruyan looked across the entire venue and turned her gaze toward me. I knew that with so many people there, she could not possibly see me. Still, I instinctively met her gaze. She continued, "He is my northern lights. He once asked me whether I would fall for anyone who came close when I was at my lowest." She answered with absolute certainty. Across the silent sea of people, she lifted her chin slightly. Starlight stirred in her eyes like tears that had not yet fallen. And just then, her gaze met mine. She said, no one but you can come near me. It could only be you. It had to be you. Thank you for coming into my life. My northern lights. From 18 to 25. I have loved you most." He shared all his light with me. Ruyan paused for a long time. The audience almost began to think that Ruyan's beloved was there in the venue. But then Ruyan turned around and said, "Thank you all for coming. But please do not dig too deeply into who he is. I do not want my feelings to add even the slightest burden to him." Lastly, only when Boda reaches the clouds does one understand how cloud and mist become Ruyan. The whole venue fell silent for a moment. Then it erupted in screams. A burden-free confession shot straight to #1 on the trending chart. The Wanton shop was still open that night. As soon as I walked in, I saw the Bellflowers on the table. When the owner saw me, she smiled and said, "Young man, your girlfriend just left. She just put those flowers there." I raised my brows in surprise, but I still steadied myself. I slowly finished a bowl of wontons. After paying, I casually took one bellflower with me. The sky was growing dark. High City was by the sea. At night, the air turned faintly cool. There was no one on the road. The sea wind ruffled my clothes, but my heart was utterly calm. I thought, if I walked slowly, I would meet her eventually. After all these years, this little while did not matter. I kept walking until I reached the beach. The evening breeze was gentle. Helplessly, I turned around. Ruyan was walking toward me, carrying 2 cans of beer. She wore a white dress, because no one else was around. She had taken off everything that covered her face. She walked quickly. Behind her curved a stretch of sea. The moon hung there, silver white. My heart surged like the tide, yet was as calm as the surface of the sea. It felt as if I had waited so many years for this moment. I let out a deep breath. A breeze brushed past my ear. Starlight swept over the clouds. I placed the bellflower in her hand. I had turned back time, just to come here and meet her. I said, "Ruyan, I like you. I always have." She drew in all that dazzling boldness around her, and looked up at me with grave sincerity. A faint blush climbed to the tips of her ears. It was as if time had carried her back to 18. Careful and full of joy, she nodded happily. Softly, she said, "I like you too." Her hand slipped between my fingers. It was warm and dry, like spring blooming in a hidden corner. I lowered my head and pressed a kiss to the corner of her lips. It was faintly cool, like moonlight. After all these years, my love was finally answered. I once thought I was only the male supporting character in the book. I never knew someone had quietly kept me in her heart. Year after year. You, too, must be someone's northern lights.